And of course, following the President's State of the Nation address, we have the State of the Province addresses taking place at the moment. Premier David Makhura is expected to cover a number of issues affecting Gauteng, including the township economy and e-tolls in his 2020 State of the Province address, which will be held at the Sefako Makgatho Health Sciences University in Ga-Rankuwa today. Now let's cross over to our reporter Natasha Phiri, who is there for more. Natasha, good morning. So what can we expect to hear today?
Well, very good morning to you, Sakina. Of course, to the SABC viewers, we're coming to you live all the way from the Sefako Makgatho Health Sciences University. And of course, this university is actually situated in Ga-Rankuwa. And of course, this is the first time that Gauteng Premier David Makhura will be, out of Johannesburg. This is his first State of the Province address that he will be addressing here all the way in Tshwane. And as you've correctly cited, Sakina, he will be, talking about issues of economic growth and job creation. Those two, of course, will top this agenda. Of course, we've also got other issues like service delivery, and also touching on service delivery. It's quite ironic that just today, in Soweto, there are those service delivery protests, but also we expect the Premier to actually deliberate on, more issues, especially the contentious issue of e-tolls. But just to set the scene and show you what's actually going on behind me, Sakina, of course, you can see the red carpet, and of course this is where the Premier will be walking through, and of course the Premier will then end up here just right behind me, where he will be observing the procession of the military band that will be playing anytime soon. Of course, proceedings will start at 10 a.m. The Premier will be giving his speech there at 10 a.m. Sakina, and of course guests will be shortly arriving from 7:30. Of course, lots of guests from not only the city of Johannesburg but of Tshwane. We can expect the mayors of Ekurhuleni, Zandile Masina, Jeff Makubo from the city of Johannesburg, the mayor, to come through, and of course the various MECs which will be actually talking to Sakina later on, just asking them about their job in terms of service delivery, how far they've actually delivered, and of course much more contentious issues.
Well, thank you, Natasha Phiri, keeping an eye on developments here in Gauteng, but we move southwards and all eyes will be on the Eastern Cape Premier, Oscar Mabuyane, when he delivers his State of the Province address today. Unemployment is expected to top the agenda in this Premier's speech, as citizens, in particular the youth, are expecting to hear how he plans to tackle the challenge. A decline in the agricultural sector due to the prolonged drought across the province is, of course, deepening economic woes in the Eastern Cape. Our reporter Busisiwe Jemsana Mantashe is in Bhisho at the legislature there to tell us more. Busisiwe, good morning to you.
Just look on the left-hand side. A very good morning, Sakina. When the scriptures say this is the day that the Lord has made for you, rejoice in it. In this case, Sakina, in the Eastern Cape, this is the day that the people of the province have been looking forward to, and the Premier, Oscar Mabuyane, has to make it worth their while. And as you said, unemployment is a top issue in the province. Of course, it's a national issue, but when we talk about the deep rural Eastern Cape, then you are facing a lot of challenges that include the ailing infrastructure. How then do you move around that to try and lobby investors to come into the province and invest? How then do you convince the people of the Eastern Cape that have lost hope in the government, those that are still hopeful that you will turn things around, when you've had so many soppers promising the people? Are the promises being fulfilled? Are the people hearing what are the plans that are there? Is there action in place? But Sakina, let's bring in the Speaker of the Provincial Legislature, Madam Souls August. Thank you so much for your time. It is you who brought the budget from 8 million to 800,000 last year, from 800,000 to 500,000 this year. But unfortunately, Speaker, we are still faced with a lot of challenges in the Eastern Cape, unemployment being the top one in the province. How then does the Premier navigate through that, seeing the challenges that he's faced with in the province?
Thank you so much for having us on the show and for being here in the Raymond Mhlaba Chamber in the Eastern Cape. Definitely, unemployment is one of the top priorities for the government, the ANC government, and as well for the Eastern Cape. We know where we are coming from, so obviously there's a lot more effort needs to be put into what we are doing. But I think we also need to be considerate and cognizant of the fact that against the backdrop of this high unemployment is fiscal constraints in government. And government and National Treasury is squeezing everything for provinces. So we need to look firstly at whatever project we want to initiate in the Eastern Cape. Can it be sustainable? And I think that is the major challenge that the Premier and his executive surely have deliberated on it, to see whatever new is going to come up, can we sustain? There have been so many good initiatives being put on the table. Even when I was in the executive, very good initiatives, but the follow-through could not have been made because of the fiscal constraints. If you remember the beat projects in the Krisani, all of those big projects that is there, due to funding, it just could not get off the ground. And I think this time around, that is what we need to look in. We also need to learn lessons from other countries. We've been to so many countries. The executive have gone, they've gone benchmarking. So it's time now to start implementing certain of those things. And I think this is the challenge. And this is the deliberations which we are all hoping that the Premier this year will put forward to say, what are the tangible things? Yes, we may not be able to do the 10 things that we want, but what are those one or two projects that we can really rally behind as the community of the Eastern Cape and behind the Premier to say this is going to make a change, not now, but in the future for our people of the Eastern Cape.
And speaking of rallying behind projects and the fiscal constraints, surely it must be a concern that when you've got these companies, these individuals, these private individuals that open factories and government invests in those, then there's no follow-up. They end up within a year, they collapse. An issue at point is Yekani, a manufacturing that was promising to hire more than 500 people. It was a beacon of hope for unemployment for the fourth industrial revolution in the Eastern Cape. How then do you hold the executive accountable to follow up on those and also hold the private companies that are promising to change things around in the province to actually stick to their mandate and be in a position where they manage their finances?
Well, obviously, as the legislature where we are working from, it's doing oversight over the executive. When the executive, that will be the MEC, the Premier has tabled, obviously, the detail will come there or from the MEC of Economic Development and Tourism. And in his policy and budget speech, they will put those details there. The legislature then steps up after a couple of weeks and a month to say, come now and account on these things, tell and explain to us how you are going to do certain of these things. And definitely the issue of business rescue is part of the program of the economic development. It's part of the areas that they do cover in. But I think we must also look at it. There's a difference in assisting an SMME and then you're assisting somebody who wants to play amongst the big players. And for that, you must have business acumen. You must be able to have the financial muscle, because government can't step in there and bail you out consistently, but your own processes do not speak to how to run a business. So these are the kind of things that really we had all hoped that it would be a beacon of hope. Unfortunately, that business could not survive. And that is not that government did not try. Government, I'm quite sure, your interviews with the Premier have alluded to it. Government has tried to assist. Government has tried to step in, even engaging the financial institutions. Right. And what became aware of is that, unfortunately, this business just could not rise to what was expected from the financial institutions.
All right, Speaker, I'd love to continue this conversation to talk about the state of education, housing and health, but it's a conversation that we will continue talking about. Unfortunately, because of time, we're going to have to leave it there. Sakina, a lot that is expected. People expecting the Premier to touch on, of course, agriculture being the major headache of the province, the rural province, as it contributes to about less than 2% to the GDP of the province. Of course, the drought also being a major factor that has affected many towns and many district municipalities in the province. For now, it's back to you in studio, Sakina.